9 minutes.
I'd like to thank all the members for their contribution to this debate here this evening. I think it's important to bear in mind that the objectives of the local property tax is to broaden the domestic tax base and to replace some of the revenues from transaction-based taxes with an annual recurring property tax. We know to our cost how, in the past, our reliance on transaction-based taxes proved to be an unstable source of government revenue. By contrast, international experience has shown that property taxes are a secure and stable source of funding. I needn't remind anybody to how important stability in our public finances is to the success of our country and economy, particularly as we head into a period of uncertainty. Given that context, it is surprising to hear calls from certain opposition benches for the removal of the local property tax. The local property tax is producing a stable revenue yield for local authorities, although both yields and tax rates are modest by international standards. The charging structure for LPT is progressive. The basic rate of 0.8% applies up to property values of €1 million, with a higher rate of 0.25% applying on the portion of value above the €1 million threshold. In addition to the progressive rate structure, and to the extent that those with higher incomes or wealth tend to own properties with higher values, the LPT is a progressive tax, particularly over the life cycles of taxpayers. From the 1st of January 2015, local authorities have had the discretion to vary the LPT rate by plus or minus 15%. A number of local authorities have exercised this option. Where a local authority decides to reduce the LPT rate, it forgoes the equivalent amount of the reduced LPT yield from its allocation. If a local authority votes to increase the LPT rate above the basic rate, it receives the full amount of the increased yield. I understand that 5 local authorities voted to increase their LPT above the basic rate in 2019 and that 4 decided on a reduced rate. By the end of 2018 and since its inception, local property tax has contributed some €2.7 billion to the funding of local authorities. The Revenue Commissioners publish comprehensive LPT statistics on a quarterly and annual basis, which includes information in relation to collection and compliance, exemptions and deferrals, payment types, and some of this is broken down by local authority. The compliance rate for 2018 was 97%, which is in line with rates in previous years. Another positive feature of the LPT is that, as a measure, which is a tax on assets, not employment, the tax will not adversely affect job creation. In relation to ability to pay, the LPT legislation has a number of features providing that in certain circumstances a person can defer or partially defer the payment of their local property tax. Deferral arrangements are available where there is an inability to pay and certain specific conditions are met. These deferral arrangements were outlined in some detail in the earlier remarks. The LPT is an annual self-assessed tax charged on the market value of residential properties. The Revenue Commission is responsible for the administration, collection, enforcement and audit aspects of the LPT. The property valuation must be determined on a specific valuation date and forms the basis for the LPT charge until the next valuation date. The first valuation date for LPT was the 1st of May 2013, and the valuation of a property set on that date remains valid until 31st of October 2019. The 1st of May 2013 valuation is not affected by any subsequent improvements or extensions to a residential property. Likewise, where a property is sold during the valuation period and the value of the property is increased, there is no additional liability to the LPT, providing the initial 2013 valuation was accurate. The LPT is now a well-established element of our overall taxation system. I consider it as important that its position is maintained, as research and experience internationally consistently show that taxes on immovable property are among the taxes that are least detrimental to economic growth. Deputies will be aware that following a review in 2015, the former Minister for Finance, Michael Noonan, proposed to Government that the revaluation date for the tax be postponed from the 1st of November 2016 to the 1st of November 2019. This postponement means that homeowners continue to have their homes valued for LPT purposes on the basis of their 1st of May 2013 declared valuation, and so were not faced with significant increases in their LPT in 2017, 2018 and 2019 as a result of increased property values. If there was no change in this position, the valuations of properties on the 1st of November 2019 would be the basis for calculating LPT liabilities in 2020 and beyond. That is why the Minister for Finance considered it essential that the terms of reference for the review of the LPT that is now concluding should include the principle of achieving relative stability in LPT payments of liable persons both over the short and longer terms. In conclusion, the report of the current review of the local property taxes has been finalised, and the Minister for Finance will then be in a position to make recommendations to Government about the tax. Just in relation to a few of the points raised in response to Deputy Danny Healy-Rae, he talked about the comparison between Kerry and Cork in relation to similar properties. I understand that Kerry local authority applied a 5% local adjustment factor, or a 5% increase in the LPT. That may account for some of the difference for homes of similar value. In relation to a number of deputies raised issues regarding the Multi-Unit Developments Act of 2011, and this Act, it shows that it's not correct to say that the owners of multi-unit developments, in paying their annual maintenance fees and local property tax, are paying on the double for the same services. They are two quite distinct and separate charges. As indicated, the annual maintenance fees associated with multi-unit developments are used for the purpose of meeting the costs incurred in maintaining, managing or refurbishing a development within its boundary walls, as well as all related ancillary services for the exclusive benefit of the property owners concerned, whereas the local property tax proceeds are largely used in the provision and maintenance of infrastructure, services and other amenities in the general locality, which are of benefit to all residents of a locality, including obviously the owners of the multi-unit developments. I know a number of other deputies refer to the taking in charge of estates.
When the review, both ministers, yourself and Minister Kyne, keep talking about the review.
Yeah.
You might have an idea when will that review report be published? That might be helpful if you're answering questions.
I haven't that information, but I know it is due, and the Minister for Finance, I'm sure, has been asked on this numerous occasions regarding the department, the taking in charge of residential developments. As you know, they're provided for in the Planning and Development Act 2000 to 2019 and the Multi-Unit Developments Act 2011. Normal housing estates fall under the provisions of the Planning and Development Act, while multi-unit developments fall under the Multi-Unit Development Act. And the taking in charge of estates is provided for under Section 180 of the Planning and Development Act 2000 as amended. And there's a number of stipulations there as well in relation to roads, etc. The procedures for taking a charge to begin promptly on foot of a request by the majority, as we know, of the residents in the development or by the developer as appropriate. Protocols, including timeframes, must be carried out by the planning authorities to respond to requests for taking a charge. So there's a number of areas issues that have been raised in relation to, but the basic charge in relation to people paying on the double, as I said, there's a number of areas whereby people in relation to multi-use properties pay for the exclusive use of their properties, whereas the LPT relates to the use of facilities by all the general public, including those of multi-use properties.
Thank you, Minister.